I feel like a star, but only strictly where I'm famous. I'm in this for the longest haul, like we'll see where it takes us. I'm throwing back these double shots like whiskey here is weightless. Cause this career I chose was even riskier than Vegas, yo.
My goodness, it feels like it's been a month since we've talked, and it's only been a week. I swear, this is my favorite date night of the month. Love it. And yes, and we have this amazing show planned tonight with our special investigation episode with co-host here, Jennifer Shaffer.
I love our show. I look forward to it every single month. It's something that really kind of takes over throughout the month.
Yeah, it's
what we decide. It's interesting.
It's amazing how it comes together because we kind of get these ideas and then they just grow. You know?
Yeah. And what was interesting is our last one was because something happened the night before.
Yes.
But it was a theme though that we wanted because of. Actually today.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And so it's interesting how all that happens, but we know better than to question it.
we do. And so for anyone just tuning in, the show tonight is based on the controversial cable television show on Netflix called 13 Reasons Why. And that is actually based off of a #1 New York best-selling book by Jay Asher called 13 Reasons Why.
Right, and it's fictional.
Yes.
People do not understand that it's fictional. It was not nonfiction.
Right.
Okay, and so that being said, there's a lot of things that we'll be able to tackle.
I think we're gonna dive into a lot. And for anyone who doesn't know the premise of this show is a high school girl commits suicide.
Yes.
And everybody can't figure out what happened. But what did happen, she actually recorded cassettes and named 13 Reasons Why.
And for anybody that's young that doesn't know what cassettes are, they were predecessors of the disc of CDs.
Yeah, or before MP3s.
And before MP3s. And so, I mean, even, it is kind of funny because even Clay, who's Dylan Minute, he actually had to borrow a cassette player because it's not something you can find.
Yes, yeah.
It just doesn't exist anymore, really.
It's a little old school.
Old school.
So, tonight we're going to look at different angles and why this show has become controversial. And I love our show. Someone's watching Facebook Live in the studio. We just have to turn that off. It plays. I learned that one the hard way, too. All right, so here's the thing. By no means, everybody, is this intended to make light of teen suicide. In fact, the idea is to open up the conversation.
Absolutely, and there's reasons for that too, which we have a special expert on the show.
We do, and I would love to just kind of talk a little bit about our expert. She is a child psychologist. She has a BA in psychology. She's an MBA from Clark University. She is a #1 best-selling author of a book called Growing Happy Kids, which won Nautilus book and Reader's Favorite book. She is a contributor for Psychology Today and runs a mentoring program for children around the world. So I would love to introduce our expert, Maureen Healy.
Yay! Hi, Maureen. Hi.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yeah. So
Can I
excited.
interject one thing real fast?
Sure.
So when people come to me, when parents are grieving because they've had children that have committed suicide or people that are grieving in general, I always ask the question like you do, who do you have as a therapist or a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist? Who do you have that's an expert that can help you manage your feelings? Because you and I give information, but we don't manage them.
Right.
And I really think our audience really needs to know that. We do not manage people's feelings, but we do give information that will help healing. That's what we do. But it's such a need to have someone to go talk to and open up to. So I just wanted to say that. Sorry, Maureen.
Yes.
I just felt it was important.
No, that's valuable. I mean, I think no matter who you are, you need someone who's, in my opinion, almost either been through some sort of big loss before that can help guide you through to the other side.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
No pun intended.
So, the reason, a couple reasons why we're talking about this show is there are youth suicide statistics. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 24.
Yes.
And it is the leading cause of death for college-age students. More teenagers and adults die from suicide than from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, influenza, and chronic lung disease combined. I mean,
It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking. So, Maureen, obviously we're going to talk about the show and the premise and our take on it and the different viewpoints. But as an expert, I would love to hear, how often are you encountering this topic with children that you're talking to?
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is every parent's worst nightmare. Not, of course, losing a child through suicide, but, having a child that even comes to you and says they want to kill themselves, and I get those calls fairly regularly. Or I live in Santa Barbara in California, and we've had recently 2 teens jumped in front of a train. One teen jumped in front of a train, and there was another teen that jumped off a cliff, which sounds horrible and is, but it's not an unheard of thing, unfortunately. I mean, we all have big, intense feelings, and they're going through these hormonal changes and big life choices, and without the proper support group or friends and a network of intelligent people around someone who can help guide them to make smart choices. What I also wanted to say was, if there was any mental health issues that aren't being addressed,
right, Maureen, can we talk real fast about the undeveloped brain and how teenagers feel like this is it? Like they don't have the capacity. Like adults are like, F you, I'm out of here. Or like, you're not worth it.
Right.
But teens feel like it lasts forever. And in their conscious mind, it does.
Right.
Can you touch on that? Sorry to interrupt.
No, this is a great question. It's interesting because we found out your brain is always changing and developing, but everything isn't online until you're 26. So your prefrontal cortex, which is judgment, isn't fully formed till you're 26.
Wow. I had a lot of judgment before then.
Wow. Is it poor judgment? Is it?
Well, that's all up to interpretation.
Right. But to your question, suicide at the most basic level is you're making a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Correct.
So it's that feeling that gray cloud above your head is never going to move. So it's not only mental illness, but there's also this misperception that this is not only is it terrible and horrible, but nothing is going to change. And that's when these choices are made that can't be taken back.
Right. So if we could tell our listeners or people that are, and we should probably put the number up if we could.
Well, we have a slide, I think, of
Okay. Of people that have ever, that are contemplating suicide.
Yeah, we can show it in a little bit too. Yeah, we'll show it throughout.
Is just to know that it's temporary. The way you think is temporary. So don't, but it's right with the way you understand it. So if you feel like there's no way out, that's because of what Maureen just said. That is because of how it hasn't developed, and you have to wait till you're 26, which is pretty funny.
That's pretty crazy. That's after college.
That's after. But you always hear like, I knew way more in my 20s than I do now.
Yeah.
Because we actually thought that was the only thing that existed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas the more we know, the less we know, and the more we understand that statement as we get older.
Yeah.
Whether we follow it or not is a whole different story. But
the only other piece I would want to add in is that it's not abnormal to consider suicide. I mean, life can be challenging and difficult and frustrating and disappointing and hurtful at moments. So the idea that you're upset and you want the feeling to go away is normal and healthy. It's just what you do with those feelings.
That's a great point.
Well, what about, so, and I'm not a parent.
Bragger.
So, but Maureen, because we can look for the signs and symbols of like, of what we can look for a teen contemplating suicide, which maybe if you know some of those, you can share it. But how does a parent know the difference between a kid just saying it and talking and a kid who's going to take action? I would like the expert, if you have something on that you can share.
Well, first of all, if anyone ever says they want to commit suicide, I always take it seriously. I don't think there is any room to be like, I don't think they'll do anything.
Absolutely not. You're right.
Because God forbid that child was the one who did take action. So I always take it very seriously. And I always, I look for different things. Who are their friends? Who are they hanging out with? Are they isolating themselves? Are they sleeping too long? Is there depression involved? Is there anxiety? Is there a family history? Because there is a biology to depression. There's a biology to not having, we're biochemical beings. So when you're depressed and you can't think clearly, there's no fault of your own. There should be no shame. It's just that literally your body and your brain chemistry isn't working perfectly. So I would look at family history. I would look at the social situations. I would look at the child. If there was some trigger, were they being bullied? Was there some incident recently that has sort of spiraled them out of control? And I would, just like we go to the bank to make a deposit for a cash or a check, there should be no shame in going to a counselor or a therapist and going in and getting a checkup and saying, hey, this is what's going on in my life. What do you think? And if they're like, okay, that's fine. Or I think we should talk a little while. There's at any age, we should be strong enough to make that choice. And especially if we have a child or teen, an adolescent who has a challenge. I mean, I'll tell you from my own life. I remember I was in a car accident when I was like 21. And my mom said, you can have the car back, but you have to see a psychiatrist 3 times. And I thought, okay, that's fine. But I thought that was a smart approach on her end. It's like, listen, this is not a joke. This is not nothing. I take this seriously. I want to make sure you recognize this is an issue, So I really, that made an impression on me that she cared enough to really take a hard stance and help me through something.
Yeah.
And another thing that I want to interject is that, so if kids, in general don't have that frontal core, they don't have that mindset yet that's adult. Mm-hmm. They don't have the awareness. And this is what this show, actually, even some of the actors brought out, that they don't have the awareness to bring it up to the parents because they still don't understand it themselves. And so as a parent, it's our job, or as a friend, or as somebody that just knows children or doesn't know children, if you see something, it is our obligation to start the conversation no matter how troubling it is, or that, because a lot of times we just think that it's going to be okay, that it's just going to go away.
Yeah.
We want to believe that we don't want to put it in their head, but guess what? They don't have it in them to actually bring it to us. And if they do, then kudos to them, and that's the greatest thing that they can do, is to come to us and be able, but we need to be responsible enough to bring it up to them and talk about it. Mm-hmm.
Also, the thing I would say is that kids just don't know what they don't know.
Right.
They don't have that wider perspective.
Right.
So they're not aware that at 10 years old, although this feels like the worst thing possible, or at 15, that there's actually so much good coming along down the path.
how would you, Maureen, how would you give advice on how a teen or anybody that's thinking about suicide confronting their parents, giving them that awareness?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question, because if I was a teen, or if I was counseling a teen, my first approach is talking to their peers, making sure they learn better from their peers. And we could go to their parents. I'm not saying don't. I'm just saying, are there peers that we can get them to connect with that are a positive influence? And of course, as a parent or teacher or a mentor or someone in this child's life that you see struggling, you do have to approach that situation. And I think one of the best ways to do it is from your own life, stories from your own life. I mean, we've all had challenges. You could say, hey, listen, it may not be the exact challenge, but we could say, hey, I know what a bad day feels like, and helping them, giving them an opportunity to open up. Because if they don't let it out, if they don't have an outlet for that intense energy, it comes out in not so smart choices.
Well, I think, though, I mean, just to be fair though, because even as an adult looking at friends, you don't. I don't know. I think it's pretty difficult to tell. Like I've had friendships where people are pulling away, and I don't know if they just don't want to hang out with me anymore, right?
Right.
Or if they're going through something. I do ask, are you going through something? Or is there anything I can help you with? I want to be a good friend. No, I'm fine. So at what point, I think, so if I don't know at my age, I think it's, how do we know?
I trust my friends. I trust my friends to look at my kids and to give me an update. I trust them to know things that as much as we're supposed to know. I say that I can't, because I have an attachment to the outcome. And when you ever do, you do not get that clear sense of consciousness coming in, especially with children.
And also, I think, if we're talking about teens specifically, teens just put so much weight on their friendships.
They do.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or their lack thereof. Yeah.
Right. So that if, that's just an entry point into their deep emotional, depths. But I think like as a parent, I mean, if I thought that my child was in trouble, there'd be no one could stop me from having that conversation with my son or daughter, because I would want to know, and I would want them to know that I'm there for you no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter whether there's good grades, bad grades, a car accident. I mean, I'm there for you. So that's what someone needs to know is like, not only am I there for you, but I'm going to help you through this. This is not final.
Right. And I think, I mean, Jen, you would know, there's a background, so I don't know if you're moving it's your coffee cup. I was like, what is that noise? There is this thing though with it striking up conversation, right? Because you had something with the school send out a notice.
So that was one of the, so I actually started watching it. My two kids came in and they started watching it with me, but they already saw the whole season.
Wow.
And I was actually devastated at first. I'm like, what? You started watching this? And it really brought, because it's very difficult content. And one of the things that I have, for our school to send out a memo saying to the middle schoolers, we need to address this and give hotlines and make sure that our kids know that we care about this, and that if they're thinking about this, they need to come in. And it's a big deal. But it was interesting because I asked my own kids about it.
Yeah.
And I asked my own daughter about it, and she had a take on it that I did not expect. And it's actually the same take as one of so Jessica, who's in this. She's a beautiful girl.
She's a character, though.
She's a character that's Justin. Her actual name is Ashley Bow. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. And she read this book when she was 14, and she goes, it made me middle school is so challenging and so difficult, and girls are so mean. And she said, it made me want to be nice and be a better person in middle school. That was before any of this happened with the show.
Yeah. I think it's tough though, because, and maybe it's, I don't know, maybe there is that genetic makeup a bit, or maybe it is bio, or maybe it's time periods. But when I was a kid, up until I changed a school, I was bullied awful. I mean, I think people think, I don't know if people realize how bullied I was, but I mean, I had really bad buck teeth, and I would just come home crying. And and then my parents, who had no money.
And you have the most beautiful smile on the planet.
Well, my parents,
by the way,
they had no money, you guys. And they had to get charity care or whatever it was at that time. But I wore braces for 4.5 years. I mean, that's how bad. And the orthodontist was like, we don't know if we can ever fix her mouth. So, and I'm always self-conscious. I've got this goofy, big mouth, big teeth. But the thing is that I was so bullied. And I had no friends, not at that age. And, and to this day, my mom, whenever I say I'm going out or I'm doing something, my mom will be like, or if it's a holiday, are you going with anyone? Or is you heading time? And it breaks my heart because she know it was just awful. And so But
I had the inverted. I had a tooth growing in the middle of my mouth. I had braces for 4 years. So it was the reverse thing that you had.
But the difference is, as I got older, our difference was, as I got stronger, you kind of get in a fight to sort it out, really.
Right.
So now I'm not advocating fighting, but I'm just saying the time periods have
stronger.
changed. Right. But now we have cyberbullying.
Right. And cyberbullying continues after school. Where we didn't have that. When we had school, it stopped after school. Because we had no way to check in. There was no, people. I mean, we had the line that if anybody called and somebody was on the phone, it would go,
Yeah.
A lot of listeners might not know that sound, but we didn't have that. So now cyberbullying does not stop. It continues throughout the night. It continues throughout their energy field.
Yeah.
And it's horrific. And so that's something that we never had experience.
Plus, if you did something stupid, right? I mean, really, like we are kids. As adults, we still do stupid things. But as kids, if they're sexuality and flashing, now someone's going to take a picture and pass it around.
So, and that's what happened. That's what happened when she went down the slide. So when Hannah went down the slide, when she was on her first
quick,
date.
Though, for anyone who hasn't seen this show, Hannah is the main character. I just want to take it back a step because not some people, and I don't want to spoil too much about it.
You're correct.
But Hannah's the main character. So there is a thing where she gets a photo.
So where it first happened, she went on this date. And she went down the slide, and he took a picture of her, which was cute. It wasn't anything bad or too bad, but it looked it could be interpreted the wrong way. Mm-hmm. Well, his buddy Bryce, which we're not going to spoil anything for you, but Bryce ended up getting the picture, taking it from his phone, posted it on his phone through social media, and that to her was the beginning of the end, because then she became that promiscuous girl.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it's a very challenging awareness to come back from that.
It was a domino effect.
It was a domino effect because then the guys find out, and then it just goes on and on.
But Maureen, for you, with the patients you see and the children that you work with, do you find that this is common? Do you find that this happens a lot, or is it more rare than we're making it?
I will answer that question, but the first comment I had about what Jennifer said was something that I teach parents and children is just because someone says something doesn't mean it's true.
Right.
So the biggest misperception that people have is if someone says something, it's true. If they post a picture of me and
Snoops.
I look like, I'm giving things away or whatever it is, it must be true. And it's like, no, that's not true. You get to define the meaning in your life. So kids really don't get that, and adolescents don't get that. But when they do, and they realize it's up to them, they can change.
It's a very good point.
So your question was about, is this still happening? I think that's basically
how bad is the cyberbullying from your patients that you're seeing? Is this really an epidemic that it's being shown as in the media? This cyberbullying, is it truly there?
From what my experience and my practice, I still have a lot of people with regular old-fashioned bullying, and there is still a lot of cyberbullying. But I think that since the documentary Screenagers came out, it was a documentary about helping parents become more aware of screens and social media, and there is more sort of policing and monitoring from parents about their teens and their elementary students. So it's still happening, but there is. I feel like I'm seeing more regular old-fashioned bullying, and then it feels like if that hasn't dissipated, it then goes to the next level. Then they start taking it into the social media. So it's certainly something that happens, but I think that we are, depending on your location and that your parents and your situation and a lot of factors, people are very, for example, there's a teen that I know who's 17, and she's incredibly smart. She goes, I am not putting myself on any social media because I see the drama that it creates in everyone's life. So I thought that was just an amazing choice that a 17-year-old made. So I do see sort of the extremes. You see kids who are very trying to get likes, not because they want anyone to like them, but because they feel more confident when they have likes.
Right.
And they have the same teens are completely crushed when someone sends something mean or someone sends something like a picture or something mean. So that is still happening, But I also see the other flip side where I have a lot of teens that are actually making pretty smart choices.
Right.
Actually.
My daughter actually did that. 2 months ago, she showed me you can get a log on your iPhone that says how many hours you spend where. And she goes, I'm not on Instagram, or I'm not going to be on Instagram anymore. I'm quitting my Snapchat just for now because I spend way too much time on there.
Oh, wow.
And she's 13. Sorry, I had to look at my friend Michelle to tell me how old my kid was. She just turned 13. But it was just very interesting. And she's like, I spent too much time on social media.
Well, that's a question I have, because I have a friend that is limiting her children's social media time. So do you find a benefit to that? Or do you have a recommendation, a professional recommendation on that, Maureen?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the child's age, and it depends on their personality, to be honest. Some kids, when you say, all right, get off this, they're like, okay, no problem. And they get off. Other kids are like, no. So my professional recommendation is that I think you do need to limit it. But I think it also depends on the child. There are some kids who just by their nature are not that interested. Right. Other kids that by their nature, again, it goes back to biology. If you have an addictive personality or someone who is more going to the extremes emotionally imbalanced, it shows up as an elementary student. It shows up in high school. And if they can't make smart choices at other places in their life, they're not going to make smart choices with social media. So they need to sort of prove to you, like, hey, I can handle this.
Oh, that's smart. That's a good way to kind of look at it.
I took my daughter's library card away.
Well, speaking of your daughter, though, let's show a picture of Blake. So Blake is Jennifer's daughter, and no, it's that she should be a young girl, but did we not have it? I thought I sent it to you, but maybe I didn't. I may have. I think it was in a separate email. Actually, that's what it was.
I sent it so late.
Yeah. But she's beautiful. But what I'd love to do is, she is 13, and if you don't mind, Jen, if I could read her take on it.
Please do.
Do you mind? Because
it actually it made me very happy.
Oh, good. Okay, so this is what she said. She said, so the show came out the day after my spring break started. Once everyone came back to school, emails were already sent out to the parents to stop their children from watching it or watch it with them. On the day back, at least 1 out of 4 kids in my grade have watched the show from start to finish. That day, I realized that people were being kinder without noticing it. For an example, if the teacher asked the class a question and the student got it wrong, nobody in the class would laugh or say mean comments. In my opinion, I think that this happened because kids realized from watching the show that saying the wrong thing at the wrong time can affect a person's life forever. And look at her. I mean, what a gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful girl she is from the inside out. And I mean, does that not make you proud, Jen, as a parent?
When she told me that, I'm still getting choked up by it. It just made me feel, she's like, Mom, because she knew that a lot of parents were saying this is wrong. No, it's glamorizing, it's glamorizing suicide. And please, audience, know that it is not glamorizing it. In fact, I actually correlated it to the Teen Moms. That show, initially, parents were so furious thinking that it was glamorizing the teen shows, Teen Moms, but actually it cut down the rate of births. It cut down the rate. They actually did. Not only do I know the producers, but you and I both know Dr. Drew, who was on it. It actually did not glamorize it at all. This is not glamorizing suicide. They're making it so uncomfortable because no one else is going to show that. No one else is going to show the cyberbullying or the slut shaming or the uncomfortableness of watching what's happening. So we have to have the conversation because guess what? Our teens are going to watch it anyway. And it is much better if we tell them and watch it with them and give them guidelines and open up the conversation so they actually have an awareness to open it up with us. Because otherwise, that's when teenagers get shut out. And I don't know, Maureen, if you feel that way. From your expert point of view, by not talking about it is the worst thing we could do.
Right.
I mean, do you agree?
From my opinion regarding communication, it's so vital to have a healthy communication with your child. and with your teen, because that saves the risks of like suicide and a whole bunch of things that we don't want happening, texting while driving, a whole bunch of different things. That goes down dramatically when we actually have honest and healthy communication. And when children and teens aren't afraid to come to us. Usually I have teens in my office, school's enemy number 1 and parents are enemy number 2. And that's not cool.
Wow.
You know what I mean? That's not cool. You don't have to agree with everything your mom or dad, thinks or does, but to be able to go to them and have that healthy connection, or at least if it's not your mom and dad, an aunt or an uncle, a teacher, someone you can talk to honestly. And suicide has to be on that list of things to talk about because it's just part of life, unfortunately.
How can a parent create a better relationship with their child? Like, we can all say communication, but from a parent's point of view, does that mean being a friend to my kid? Does that mean being strict? Like, how can a parent open up the communication to really nurture that relationship?
Right. I think part of it, honestly, is to have fun along the way. I mean, I think it's very easy to get caught up in brush your teeth, go to school, do your homework. We got to get you here. I mean, you really need to enjoy each other's company as just another human being. And then you want to also, like you said, you're not their friend, you're their parent. So there is this, you are there to help them, but you are also, I think, successful parents that I've worked with have a partnership approach. So they work with the child to problem solve things.
Right.
Like if there's a child or a teenager who's doing poorly in math, you don't say, you better study more and get better grades. You say, okay, well,
you figure it out and give them help.
Well, yeah. How can we be creative about this? Do you want to do
about
online learning? Do you want to do a tutor? Like, we need to get this up and not make it their fault, but look at everything like problem solving.
Maureen, that is such a great way to approach emotional issues. I never looked at it that way. I do with school, but like with my daughter and son, like I tell them, like, I'm awkward. I become vulnerable with them. I just say, hey, listen, I don't have the best parenting skills to be your best friend or to be, because I don't believe that's going to help you. What I want you to know is that I'm not going to know. And you have to understand with what we do for work, to say we don't know is like could be taken as a slap in the face that my mom's working so much, doing, helping other people, or, but yet she doesn't even know what's going on in her own house. So it does have this like diatribe of situations where I tell my daughter, and this has been the best approach I feel, I'm all, Blakey, I'm awkward socially. I just am. I'm not going to know what's in your head, but I need you to just say, hey, Mom, I'm thinking about this. And I give her ways of just going, hey, you know what? Remember what we talked about this? And then I think that opens up the conversation more when a parent becomes vulnerable. Not sad or not like not trying to like overcome for working or whatever, just being there in that moment, just saying, hey, you have me. Please tell me what you need or what, because I'm not going to know. And for us, we're supposed to know.
I think it's a tough line, though, between discipline and communication and fun. And I think it just seems like a really tough line, because I've seen parents try to be BFFs with their kids, and that doesn't seem to work. I've seen parents be strong disciplinarians. That doesn't seem to work. Well, then again, that's why I'm not a parent. So,
but I mean, to go to your point, though, it is the fastest way for spiritual growth is being a parent, because it is. No, really, it is so challenging.
That's interesting.
How can you be conscious and loving when a teenager's telling you to F off? It's like, wow. You know what I mean? So it brings up your own triggers. And I always find that when you're parenting a child, you're like reparenting yourself at that age. So if you have a 13-year-old and you didn't really like being 13,
you're trying to give them every single aspect of what you didn't get emotionally or physically. And my mom and dad did an amazing job. I was one of 7 children.
But I would love to just say that people can absolutely be spiritually enlightened who don't have children. I really think that's a fair thing to say. I'm really sorry, but I have to defend people who don't have kids.
Wait. I have to say that
spiritual.
I have to say that you guys are ahead of us.
Probably not, but it's
and anybody that's ever cared for an adult or for a dog or a cat or some type of animal, You were enlightened because you don't want to hurt that person.
Right.
The only difference between parents is that my kids might be so cute that I won't physically hurt them at this point. But it
Right.
doesn't mean that I'm not thinking things.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I'm not going, okay, I'm in way over my head. I actually told somebody real fast. I actually told someone, if someone came to me, if I didn't have children and I was applying to have a child, and then all of a sudden at this age, which is, real young, not. And they said, you get to have 2 children and they're going to look like this and this is what their names would be like. I'm not ready. I am at this age, I'm not ready to have kids.
Yeah.
But back then, thank goodness we have them then, because I think there is a point to all of that.
Yes.
Because there's no
and
way.
one isn't better than the other. It's
Right.
just that the idea of having responsibility for anyone 24/7 a day, I mean, just that idea is a little
Overwhelming.
stressful.
It makes being a turtle owner a lot better.
I used to have turtles.
Well, there you go. I would love to just mention Maureen's website, growinghappykids.com. And she does mentoring. She has a mentoring program. You can go to her website. She does them around the world. You can do it on Skype, via the internet. But, if you have questions or a consultation, she does offer them. So I would encourage our listeners to please visit the website, check Maureen out.
You're amazing, Maureen.
Yeah, and
You are.
Thank you.
I just want to take a moment and really thank you so much for being a part of the show tonight and for giving us the expert advice on this, because I think it's invaluable that we have it. If we're going to do this show, it's part of someone who does this for a living. How do
Right.
you cope? What can we do? How can we be more nurturing and encouraging to our children?
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is just that, anyone who's listening, that, always reach out to someone. There's always someone,
Always.
if you have the, just to reach out to someone and let someone know you're struggling. No one can help you if nobody knows. So I think the
Right.
first thing is just to reach out.
And can I mention just another thing real fast? Is that when for instance, when I was younger, I thought about suicide. I had no reason to think about suicide. I grew up in a lovely family. All of this, there was no reason. And I think a lot of kids that actually think about suicide don't know why. Okay? And the reason why I'm saying this is because now I'm a medium. Granted, I didn't know that when I was young. But I think a lot of kids that are supposed to work in law enforcement or doctors or people that are going to help the other side, there's something innate into your mental body that's saying you're going to do that. Some people take that the wrong way. Like I thought about suicide because I didn't have a dialogue as a child and it's nobody else's fault, but I didn't have a dialogue as a child that I was going to be working with the other side. They don't want me over there. And a lot of kids that think about suicide, you're going to be working with them. They don't want you over there.
Right.
Just like if you were born to sing, you get put in singing classes, or if you're born to dance, you get put in dancing classes. You're born to think about death, you go to a psychiatrist. If you're lucky. But it's just
Right.
another take that I want parents to know about, that if their kids have talked about that, maybe they are going to go into forensics. Maybe they're going to do something with the other side. Anyway.
And I run that mentoring program for highly sensitive kids
I love
because children who are very sensitive, you just feel more deeply, and teenagers feel more deeply. And it's those deep feelings that you're struggling with how to make choices on. And so
Right.
having someone else who's been through that, whether it's someone in the community, someone professional, wherever, I think is a big win.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's not their own feelings, too. Right? And you're helping them figure that out. Thank you.
Just in closing for Maureen, is there any way? What if someone's got a teenager that doesn't like to talk? Like, you could see in the show, the 13 Reasons Why, parents were asking the kid, "How are you? What's going on?" Like trying to engage in conversation, but the teen was absolutely kind of not having it, giving them one-word answers. As a parent, what advice do you have to them to kind of help open that door a bit more?
Well, I think it's like any profession or doctor. You just have to get the right person. And I think that a child picks up on what you're giving them. So if you're worried and concerned, and know what I
Right.
mean, that
It
they're picking
mimics
up
it.
on that, and they're like, no.
No.
But if they go to someone who like completely knows that whatever you say is okay. I'm not going to tell anyone. This is confidential. You're in a safe space. They get that too. So I have a bunch of parents who actually drop off their kids, or kids that drive to my sessions. So, and the parents pay for the sessions, but they say, you don't have to tell me anything. Just tell me that, Sally's on the right track. They want that child to have that safe space because they know there's something, but they're not the right person. So I think that it's all about finding that right match. And that oftentimes I think it's hard as a parent to say, I'm not the right match. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we need to find someone, whether it's Colby, whether it's Jennifer, someone who can connect to them on a very authentic level, and they can feel like it's safe and comfortable, and they can get the guidance they need. And I really explain that coaching or mentoring, if you're going to learn soccer, you go to a soccer coach. If you're going to learn happiness, you go to a happiness coach. There should be no shame in it. You got to, someone is farther along on the path. You just ask them, how do I handle X, Y, Z?
How do I wake up happy?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great, Maureen.
I hope that's helpful. Yeah,
it's very, very, very helpful. So, I'll just take a moment to thank you again. For anyone, again, check out Maureen's website, growinghappykids.com. There you go. Yay. And Maureen, thank you so much. And also, let's show. Yeah.
Yay.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Have a great night.
So we've got a few minutes left. So I thought we could just kind of
take calls, or
no,
sorry,
I wasn't planning on it.
Okay, didn't look into it.
Diving into the areas that we can kind of work with on a spiritual level with these kids, and creating that open environment for them.
So a lot of things. So just from my experience as a child, when I would go to school, I would feel this horrible feelings, what I thought was from my friends, but really it was just from their stuff.
Yeah.
And so what I'm teaching my own kids is what is theirs and what's not theirs.
Right.
And to just really just know that a lot of stuff that they think about is really not their own. I know this is a lot in one podcast, and we probably should make it 2 podcasts, but or 3 or 4. For instance, Selena Gomez, who I love, she was one of the producers of this show. She said she wanted to make sure that suicide is not an option. Suicide can be something that can be prevented. So if our kids are actually able to talk about it, then they're actually able to get help that they need. But it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Anything that's uncomfortable, whether it's drugs or whatever, it's very uncomfortable when you're growing up. And we have to remember that our kids' brains think that is it. They have nowhere to go because their brains aren't developed. We really have to remember that they think this is going to last forever, this pain.
Yeah.
That might not have answered your question.
And sometimes it does last forever. I mean, I mean, there are just people that...
We have triggers.
Well, there are people that deal with depression, and they have to learn how to
absolutely
maintenance. And so,
but like she said, get a soccer coach. Get a coach that's going to help you. Don't shame it.
Yeah, I think the
no
show...
more shaming.
I mean, for me watching the show, well, the one thing too, I thought, and again, it's very interesting because I do have a friend that will not let her children watch it. She doesn't want them to see it, or I have seen it, and I didn't think. I mean, and again, but I didn't. It is it's very, very sensitive material, but to be honest, it's very realistic in the content that they're talking about.
They wanted to make sure that they did everything, and so when it came down to Bryce. Okay, everybody wants to hate Bryce. That's in the show.
So Bryce
is the popular one.
He's like the quarterback of the varsity team kind of deal.
So if anybody gets anything out of this, please, please, please tap on the trailers when you go to Netflix to get what's beyond the reasons, to get the video, because they will go into detail, and watch it with your children. Watch it because it gives so much information about why they did the things that they did in the show and why suicide, they wanted to make it so ugly because it was not something that it's preventative.
Yeah.
It's not something that's glamorized. It's preventative if you talk about it.
And I do, again, just because I just want to be sensitive to the parents. If you have or know of a child that has committed suicide, I don't want you to feel that you did something wrong because it wasn't prevented.
Absolutely. I'm sorry.
I just want to make that clear.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of parents that I've in my life, I've tried to commit suicide. I said that in our last podcast. And it's because I actually loved the other side. I didn't understand that I was not supposed to be over there.
Not yet.
Not yet. And so when it comes to children that commit suicide, it's nobody else's fault. It's not their fault. There's something chemically that happened in their brain. There's something that went wrong. But I'm just saying that people that are actually thinking about it now as a preventative tool, we could actually have the conversation, because a lot of kids didn't know again, if we don't have the conversation, they don't know to bring it up to the parents.
Right. The same as, having...
It's an awareness.
Having the condom talk to prevent pregnancy. Let's have the suicide talk.
Haven't had that talk yet.
Yeah. Well, it's... opening up the communication. Opening up the communication is the key, I guess, is what we're learning here, don't you think?
Absolutely. When Dr. Drew told me this 2 years ago, you have to talk about it, I've looked at him like he was crazy. I'm like, we can't talk about it. But he is absolutely right. We have to have the conversation. It's not going to make them want to go do it. It's going to make them be aware that we are aware.
Right.
Versus them feeling alone in the process.
Or that there's this fairy tale land, and that they're having these real issues, and then they can't talk about it. It's like saying, yeah, you can.
You can. We might not like what you're saying.
Yeah.
But
it's probably not comfortable as a parent, I would imagine.
No.
Probably not.
No.
But it is key.
That's way better than finding after or missing something where your daughter gets pregnant.
Or anything, yeah. I mean, I think if most parents had the option, I would choose the pregnancy over suicide. But
it wasn't a comparison. I was just thinking in my own world.
Yeah,
it wasn't a comparison. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, it's okay. But it's we're being sensitive to all parents and issues, and it's not an easy thing, is it? It's not an easy topic.
It's not an easy topic, and I'm telling you, it really, when I heard Blakey's comment, because I went to the other side, I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so many kids that are thinking about suicide, and she's like, Mom, this little cute little angel, as of now, by the way, I'm not trying to project she's going to be like that for the rest of her life. I don't want to give her that haul, on her back, but she goes, no, kids are acting nicer, and it was true, and for her to say that, I'm like, wow, that's the only the other parents don't have that take because they just saw the show. They didn't talk to their kids, so they don't know what their take is.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so because I made her sit with me in the most uncomfortable scenes, she's like, Mom, people are so much nicer. That's the other take. They're nicer because they know that what they say matters.
Right. And words do matter, and I think words matter as an adult.
Thoughts matter.
And what we say to one another. And again, with social media is such an obvious one. People will say things on social media that they would never say to the person's face. Mm-hmm. And we really, just as a society, I feel, need to be much more caring and compassionate and kind to one another.
Pick up the phone.
So
just pick up the phone. Don't get in your head. If you think something, just pick it up.
Yeah.
And call the person.
Absolutely. It looks like we are about at the end of our show already. If you can even imagine, that's how quickly the time. I know we have fun together. We do. I know we do. Even with the difficult topics. But that's the idea of this episode. Special investigation.
We're going to stir the pot.
We're gonna look at things, and we're gonna try to understand it more. So, anyhow, I just, again, thanks. This was a great idea by you, Jen. Really, it was Jen's idea for this show. I had to go and what's that called? What did I have to do? Crash watch them? Binge watch.
You have to binge watch these.
But I'll tell you, you start and it is.
You won't stop. But please, after you're done, don't watch the trailer. Don't watch when you touch trailer. Watch that afterwards. Please watch everything else. But thanks you guys for listening.
All right. Well, there we go. Till next month. Yes?
Till next month.
All right. JenniferShaffer.com.
Yes.
Colby. See you next month.
All right.
Sometimes I feel like a star, but only strictly where I'm famous. I'm in this for the longest haul, like we'll see where it takes us. I'm throwing back these double shots like whiskey here is weightless. Cause this career I chose was even riskier than Vegas, yo.